All right. So I wanted to speak about this topic. What made me think about it was actually I was in New York. I missed a class. You remember a few weeks ago because I was in New York. I gave a talk there. And when I was there, a former student had reached out to me. I came Thursday night. I left Monday morning. I guess she saw me like right away Thursday night. She reached out to speak to me, and like somehow I sort of had this like intuition. She was coming to tell me some litany of the stuff I had done wrong to her, and I was correct, and she did. And I was very grateful because it gave me a tremendous opportunity to hear her and to apologize very sincerely, very profusely, and to really work through a lot of pain. And here's somebody, maybe she's in her early 30s, so maybe she's been carrying this pain around her for 15 years. And I was like, wow, like imagine that here, because of me, someone was carrying around all this pain. And I was so grateful that she approached me. I was very impressed with her courage, because it's not so easy to approach someone and say, you hurt me. You have to sort of trust them enough to make yourself that vulnerable. But it was so healing. And I thought about like, who knows what other students of mine are walking around like that? I've had two other such incidents, over the years of alumni telling me, sharing with me how I had really hurt them when they were in high school. And of course, here I am. I think I'm Miss Wonderful, Miss Nice, Miss Kind. But that does make a difference. You can be a nice person. You can still hurt people. Obviously, teenagers are, we might say, especially vulnerable as our children, but it's also just, adults also get hurt by people. We can hurt people. And I was really thinking of all these former students and who knows who's walking around with hurt because of me. And I really decided I wanted to make this class. I wanted to dedicate it to all of those students of mine. So just as hopefully we'll be able to release some pain here, perhaps to help other people that aren't privy to hear this, but should put out the energy in the world and should help other people also release their pain. So I wanted to really focus on techniques of healing. What can we do to heal a pain, a mental pain, a emotional pain, a psychological pain? No easy fixes, because if it's so easy, you wouldn't need to listen to anything. So, but I'll give some suggestions of ideas that have worked, and maybe you've tried them, but maybe hearing you'll try again, and maybe it'll be good. The best thing to really do is exactly what this girl did, which is to go to the person that hurt you and talk to them about it for a very specific goal. You want them to apologize, to sincerely apologize, to emotionally apologize, to profusely apologize. You don't want them to defend themselves. You don't want them to explain how they were right and you were wrong. You don't want them to minimize your pain. You don't want them to deny the story. You just want them to listen and to apologize. So why am I saying that? Because maybe someone's ever come to you, and maybe you've been the person that someone's come to and said, you really hurt me. And of course, our knee-jerk response as humans, as healthy humans, as normal humans, is to defend ourselves and to deny the story. And to think, oh my gosh, this person is so exaggerating and taking it so out of context and so forgot the history. And that's what we're like. That's what we're like. It doesn't mean we're bad people. It means we're very normal. And very often when someone else is hurt, we think, well, they're so blowing it out of proportion. Do they remember when they da 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 da? And that's what we all say. But you just have to shut down those parts of yourself. And you just have to really listen, really proactively listen, and really empathize. And you can never minimize another person's pain because it seems to you that the cause of that pain is trivial. I say one of the girls, I said I had two other alumni that approached me years after high school to say that I had hurt them. And one of them, I was so shocked. It was such a nice girl. What would I have ever done to her? I mean, I didn't deny it. I couldn't think, no bells dinged in my brain. And what had happened, she told me what happened. She said, she was in ninth grade and I was teaching. It was probably something very complicated and deep. And probably 10 girls in a row asked me the same question. And I patiently responded to the first 9. And she was like girl number 10. I don't know if it was 8 or 15. Like, I mean, it could have been either. I mean, I definitely remember those times where you just say the same answer again and again and again and again and again. And I guess at that point, I just sort of, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't say anything not nice to her, but I sort of gave that like, sigh. And she felt very crushed. And she felt very, very, very hurt by that. And it was very sincere. She was a sensitive, sweet girl, 9th grader. And she felt so crushed that 9 other girls I sweetly, nicely responded to. And suddenly it came to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, one more time. Why don't you listen to the other 9? You know?
Thank you so much.
And she was really hurt. She was really hurt. And I heard enough that after high school, again, it wasn't the year after high school, you know, she spoke to me about it. And thank God I was able to sincerely apologize and work through it with her. But you can never say, well, that was such a silly thing. Why'd she hold that in her heart for 6-8 years? Like, come on. And what did you do wrong already? Can never be in that space. Can never minimize another person's pain. Their pain is legit because it's their pain. And so if anyone ever comes to you, you have to really just listen, don't deny, don't defend, and sincerely apologize. For you to go to someone else and share with them, they have to be the type of person that will do that as well, which is why sometimes it doesn't feel safe to share your pain with someone because you know them and they're going to deny and then they're going to make you feel stupid. And sometimes it helps to tell the person, I'm coming because I need your apology. So just listen and apologize. That's what I'm coming to. If they give you a half-baked apology, it might not be like so helpful, but you never know. Sometimes people will realize and will feel, oh my gosh, you've been in pain over this for 5 years or for 25 years or for 45 years. Wow, I didn't mean to hurt you like that. And their apology might be more sincere than you realize, because a regular person doesn't want to hurt someone else. Really doesn't. And that sincere apology is a great way to release pain. Now, some people, you say, there's no way I'm going to speak to them, but maybe you could send a letter. Maybe you could send an email. A letter is really good because who in the world ever receives letters? So it just might have some shock value, like a real live letter that you open up. It's not a bill, it's a letter. So that might work for some people, and some people, no way. You can never go back to them. And that's okay, because if you know you can't, then you're not going to use this technique. But if you can, it's very healing. Just merely the person saying, I am so sorry. I never meant to hurt you, or I never meant to hurt you like that, is still healing. So that was my best idea. What else can I share with you? We have to bring in God, of course. That's what this class is about. And when you bring in God, it helps you. The more you have a relationship with God, the more you can heal, because a very critical step sometimes, and there's lots of different, roads to Rome. So different things work for different people or different situations. And sometimes you need a whole combination of different strategies. But a really, for many people, pivotal step to heal from pain is to accept the pain. To accept this happened. It really did happen to me. And I'm a different person because of it. And once I accept it, we can just move on. And when we understand and when we remember all that we've learned in this class, that everything is God. And there's nothing but God. And everything that happens to you, even things that seem like really unfair, hard, difficult, painful, stressful, undeserved, it's all coming from God. Yeah, you can say it's not God, it's this horrible person. Could be a person, they might sincerely be a horrible person. They might be a really horrible person. But the fact that that horrible person intersected with your life is part of God's plan. That person could have made horrible choices and done horrible things, but there's a God. And if it wasn't supposed to happen to you, it wouldn't have happened to you. That person still might make horrible choices, but it wouldn't have affected you. The fact that you were the victim of someone else's horrible choices is because there's a God. And this is what he decided is the best thing for you. So when we think of him and we bring God into the picture, this is doing two things. One, it's allowing us, it's giving us permission to feel the pain. Because a lot of times when we're very hurt, we deny it to ourselves, or we just put it in a freezer. We know it's there, but it's just too big for us to deal with. So we just like stick it in the freezer and pretend it's not there. But it is. And it's weighing on us because we haven't dealt with it. So if you bring God in, this also gives you permission to say, this happened. This is part of the divine plan. And I can allow myself to feel what happened. That's part of what God wants. And as I feel it, I can then come to the place of accepting it, not accepting and saying it's good or it was right or anything. We're not in any way whitewashing it. We're just saying, I'm accepting it as part of God's plan for my life. I'm accepting that I'm a different person because of this. I'm accepting that this had to happen to me to make me the person that I became. And I'm free, and I can move on now. So this idea of allowing yourself to feel it and allowing yourself to accept it. Again, accept it doesn't mean justify in any way. Accept it just means this is now part of my life. This is now part of who I am. This, whatever happened to me, whatever circumstances I was in, whatever things happened around me, this is part of what God wanted for me. And I'm going to accept it and understand this is part of me. This is part of my story. This is part of what I needed to go through because God wouldn't put me through this unless I needed to go through it. And then I can move on. And that's my choice. And when a person moves on to a healthier place, to healthier patterns, to healthier feelings, that means they're healing themselves. And when you stay stuck in that pain that you're not even allowing yourself to feel and you're rejecting, and we reject it by pretending it never happened. We put it in a closet, we close the door, and we pretend it never happened. That's how we reject it. And then we never heal from it because it's just like this raw wound that we never treated. But when we say, this is from God, this is part of my journey, this is part of who I am, I'm allowed to feel the pain. And then I'm going to make a choice. And the choice is going to be to say, this is what God wanted. This is part of what needed to happen to me. And now I can move on. So obviously, you can only share that idea with someone that has a real relationship with God. The first idea you could share with anyone. Anyone who's suffered and any good human being you could share with. The idea if someone comes to you, just apologize. And that's part of being a moral human being. And that's how God wants us to be. And that's part of being a Noahide. So for sure, that idea, which is very much a Noahide idea, you could share with anyone. Now, the second idea that was true for everyone, but the more a person really has a relationship with God, the more they can take this concept in on the inside, not just hear it as words, but really absorb it and integrate it into themselves. So has anyone here done this, done the work, accepted a pain you experienced, and saw that from the point of acceptance, you did begin to heal?
Well, it's interesting you brought this up. Not
Everything
this
is the hand of God.
but the week before. I have a very harsh voice. My mother did. I do. I come across as harsh, and I try and work on it. My mother tried to work on it, but I'm very spur of the moment, and I'm very black and white, and I say what I feel, which I should not do. And I was out working in the yard, and Candace, her husband, had just fixed some carts for us for the barn. And I had bought the cart carriage, and I had expressed that I wanted to put the new part for the cart on a different part than he put it on. And she came and approached me, and she said, Jeremy feels like you're always angry at him. I said, what? She said, yeah. She said, you didn't like the way he does things. And she said, he's not Jack. I don't understand. I said, I don't expect him to be like Jack. I said, all I said was that handle was long on that cart and that the cart didn't get, the carriage wasn't put on the cart. I thought it should have been. I said, that's all I said. She said, well, she said, he took it wrong. And she said, because you seem bitey. And I said, oh my gosh, do I have to go through with this guys again on this? We have talked about this before. It's me. It's my manner that I have been working on forever. Because Jack would say the same thing. He said, you're biting at me. And I said, I'm not biting at you. I'm in my more normal voice. And he said, it's biting. And I said, I can't help it. And I pray about it. And then I apologize and I ask forgiveness. But I reacted wrong when she tried to approach me about it. Instead of doing like you said I should have done, and I knew I should have done, I fought back. And I had to go and apologize to her and say, I'm so sorry. And that I reacted wrong. I said, I will continue to try and work on it. And that's all I can do. But, it's just.
Did she accept? Did she feel mollified?
Oh, yeah.
What you said? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. They're fine with it. Yeah. They're good people, but it's sad because sometimes our nature is not, you don't come across like you really mean. I never want to bite at anybody, but my voice is bitey, and that's what I was given. So that's one of my things I have to work on hard.
Well, it's amazing that you're so self-aware, and you see it's generational.
Oh yeah.
And you, yeah. If you're saying I don't mean anything negative, but that doesn't save the recipients from feeling that I mean something negative, then it's requiring you to, especially if you're going to say something that's a bit of a criticism, a little bit of a critique, to like say it in a very soft tone. Excessively soft. I really think maybe the handle could be on another carriage. Maybe, I'm not sure. I think so. No, it's fine.
You sound like my sister. My sister is always working on me and my manners. And when we go to lunch, she said, now you got to act nice. She said, you've got to be polite. I said, Judy, I am polite. She says, right there, you're not polite. You just said, Judy, I'm polite. You should have said, my sister, I will work on that.
We all have our challenges. I have plenty of my own. We all have our challenges, but it's great to be self-aware about them.
I know.
That's the first step of healing, is being aware. Until we get to that point of honestly acknowledging what we have to work on, when nothing ever can happen. Once we honestly acknowledge it, the second step is to believe it can change.
Exactly. But what happens to me? I get devastated that I hurt somebody and I didn't even know, because I never, when people tell me I've done something wrong, I take it. Okay, I did it wrong. I'll do it over. But a lot of people can't take that. And I don't understand that. And then when I do that, I'm devastated that I hurt them. I just am.
So that's a good point to remember. Just because I have the strength or the conviction in myself or enough security in myself that a criticism, I'm like, oh, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. There are many people in this world, and I should always err on the side of caution that there's many, many people in this world that don't have the inner resources to handle criticism, even with a very delicate touch. And it's true. Maybe they were criticized a lot when they were children. Maybe they don't have confidence or belief in themselves or in their abilities. There's a lot of people in this world that get very thrown by any negative energy, anything they perceive as negative energy. And that's a good point that Dixie's making, that sometimes, because we wouldn't mind if someone spoke to us like that way, so then we don't think it all should mind when we speak that way. It doesn't work that way. Just because we can handle it doesn't mean the other person can. And we really always do have to err on the side of caution, on the side of sensitivity, on the side of I don't know what this person's been through today or in their life. And if I don't know how sensitive they are. And a lot of times people that have been hurt are very sensitive. Or if people have been made to feel not worthy are very sensitive about their worth. People made to feel they're not very good at their profession are very sensitive about, their professional abilities. So whatever it is, there's, doesn't have to be, deep traumas. It could just be that, too many people that day have been criticizing his ability to put the right handle on the right place. So, like, oh no, not again. And we've got it.
Well, you know what I see? I see a lot of time it's only children that can't, when a child is the only child in the family, they have trouble handling criticism. It seems like for some reason, well, they grew up without criticism because they didn't have other siblings
to criticize them.
Yeah. And so they can't take the criticism. That's what I've seen.
Could be, and a person could grow up with very critical parents and therefore can't handle criticism, or very critical siblings and therefore can't handle criticism. There's a lot of people out there that have a very hard time with criticism, and you're absolutely right. We should all be really sensitive on the side of like, you never know. But you have to tell them to put the handle on the right carriage. So you have to think of how can I say this in a soft way that I won't hurt someone who's not in the space right now handle criticism, but I still need it to be done right. So that's our challenge. But getting back to my question was the other end. So Dixie is saying this is a great class because she hurt someone last week and everything is the hand of God. And I'm saying the other end, if someone personally been hurt for small or big, doesn't have to be the biggest, doesn't have to be the smallest, anywhere in between, and really actually did exactly what I just suggested, really accepted the pain they experienced. And from that point of acceptance, they actually saw they were able to heal. Becca, so you went through something like that.
Well, yeah. My dad was, he grew up in a very harsh environment, especially with his dad. His dad was very strict and he was very harsh, and also his mother, but in kind of a different way. So when I came along anyway, I was, to put it his way, scatterbrained. I was just just all over the place, and my mind was everywhere, and just, and it irritated him because he wasn't allowed to be that way when he was a kid. You have to pay attention. You have to, if something,
yeah, keep going.
Okay. So, and my husband was brought up a similar way. You had to notice if something needed to be done. You shouldn't have to be told. And if you do have to be told, that you should only be told once, and so it was very strict. And my mom was not that way with me. I was just allowed to be little Becky just wandered around doing whatever, and it was so irritating for my father. And he would say things to him. He was being nicer than his parents were. He would just say things in a kind of a hurtful way, but to him, he was tempering his frustration. And so he would say little snide remarks, that hurt my feelings, but it got my attention, whereas my mom's, she was just like, I ran all over my mom. So anyway, I went around feeling hurt for years toward him, for decades. And it was only in the last maybe 20 years that after he died, that I kind of accepted it. And I thought, I really thought about the way he was brought up. And I thought he was trying to correct me with the only words he had, the best words that he had, the only way he knew how. And unfortunately, it was the only way that really got my attention because mom's way of, well, could you please, would you, if you want to, would you just do a few, and I was just like, nah, and I just, and dad was like, no, you are going to do this. So anyway, but he would say, you're scatterbrained, you're going to go through your life needing somebody to hold your hand all your life, and blah, blah, blah. He would just say kind of snippy things like that. And it really hurt me. But I finally did, realize, he treated me better than his parents treated him. And those were the only words he had. So
you're saying exactly that. You're saying when you came to the point of acceptance, your version of acceptance was a little different than what I meant. You're actually segueing into something else I was going to talk about, which is forgiveness. So when you're saying acceptance, your acceptance really is forgiveness. When I meant acceptance, I meant more like, if you will, forgiving God. I meant like accepting. So this happened to me. Yes, I'm a child. I'm an adult who for the first 15, 20 years of my life had a father that was very critical or snippety or made put down remarks a lot to me. And because of that, whatever was a fallout of that in your own life. And that's part of me. That's part of who I am. That's part of what was supposed to happen to me, because there's God and he wanted it to happen to me. I was given exactly the father I was given. I was given exactly the mother I was given. He was given exactly the parents he was given. And I understand this is part of my journey and I'm going to move on. I'm not going to be stuck. And I don't need to make this a generational thing. It's already gone down. And I don't have to continue treating people in my world like I was treated, because I can make healthier choices. But what you were saying in terms of what you were saying was actually another point I was going to raise. So I wasn't going to raise it now, but I will, because Becca just said it, which is the idea of forgiveness. And that, to me, your acceptance was really your forgiveness of your father. And that forgiveness is really what enabled you to move on, because when you forgave him, that enabled you to release your pain. So Becca gave an example of something I didn't say, but is 100% true. And she also gave the beautiful way to forgive. In other words, not only did she use my technique that I didn't say yet, but she even used the details of the technique I didn't say yet. How did she forgive her father? Because she looked at him and she said, he was doing the best he could with the tools he had. He just didn't have very good tools. He sincerely loved me and wanted the best for me. And he was trying to find the softest, kindest way to express to me that I better pull myself together. I'm going to be in big trouble later in life. So now that I realize that he really did mean it from love, though that didn't take away the fact that it was hurtful and wrong. Doesn't take the fact that it was wrong. It was wrong for him to say those things to a child. It definitely hurt me. It definitely affected my life. It definitely affected how I viewed myself. So all those things, I'm not whitewashing and saying it was good, his parenting techniques, but I'm forgiving him and accepting that he was doing the best he knew how. And that is, yes. So Becca jumped to a very strong road we can tell ourselves to forgive someone. Now it sounds like Becca did this just, her father passed away and she was reflecting and she was realizing there was a lot of love underneath all of his comments. But from another angle, people can forgive people that have hurt them for the goal that we are discussing tonight, to release their pain. And we have discussed this, I know, in other classes, that sometimes we just need to forgive, because if we don't forgive, we're going to be walking around with a lot of pain. And when we forgive, we release the pain. And forgiveness never means it was okay. Like even what Becca was saying, she didn't say what her father did was okay. She was saying he didn't know how to do any better. And he was trying hard to be so nice compared to how he was raised. So he was really trying, and he was really trying from love, but that still doesn't mean what he did was okay. So forgiveness doesn't mean what the other person said was okay or did was okay or emoted was okay. It doesn't mean any of that. You can forgive someone who was wrong. And sometimes, again, forgiveness comes from this sense, which doesn't sound like that's where Becca was coming from, but forgiveness comes from a sense of, I need to move on. I need to release this pain. And until I truly forgive, I'm carrying it. So I just, for my own health, I need to forgive. And I can forgive exactly like Becca did, saying he or she was doing the best they could with the tools they had, and he or she had horrible tools. But maybe they're a victim. Like Becca even went to that. She said he was a victim of his parents' bad parenting, that who knows what they went through and why they were like that. But you can always, if you know, like Becca knows, she knew her grandparents, she knew the patterns. If you know and you say, yes, this person was a victim of trauma, this person was a victim of abuse, this person was a victim of generational patterns. Again, don't say if it's not true. But if any of those things are true, they were acting out the only scripts they knew. They were never given the tools they needed to give me what I needed. Becca.
I just wanted to add, though, that I know, and then probably because of me, because of something I said to my mom, I was always really angry with my mom because they were separated for a few years in my life. And I was really kind of angry with her for taking him back. She thought, he's a good provider, he's a worker, and my daughter needs a father, he's her father. And so she took him back. And I was kind of angry because she did, because of the way he ended up being. But I did end up telling her to her face, I said, Mom, I'm really glad that I had the life that I had. It made me who I am. He was the way the way you guys were, it caused me to, to really think about things. Like Dad was more open-minded toward about like religious things, new ideas. He was more receptive to new ideas than Mom was. He was looking, before he passed away, he was looking into, different religious avenues, and I saw that, and that sparked something in me, and Mom, she was more steadfast, more diligent, more, she had her religious patterns. She always said a blessing before she ate. She always paid her tithe promptly right off the top. So she provided that example. And so I told my mom just recently, I said, I'm just taking what you guys started and running with it, and so I'm really glad that you guys were the way you were. And I think that made her feel a lot better about the past.
It's a very beautiful thing for you to tell her, because I'm sure that released a lot of her pain. It's basically your way of forgiving her for what she did. And it's also beautiful, something else you're doing there, which is also such a healthy thing. And it's another great technique for someone who's in pain. So to decontextualize what Becca said, and it's a great way to forgive, besides understanding he never was given what he needed, so therefore he couldn't give me what I needed, which is a great general technique. But something else she said, which is very wise, is instead of getting stuck, like let's say in a relationship like a parent, or it doesn't have to be a parent, but in a relationship where there's a lot of different aspects going on, instead of getting stuck on the negativity of the relationship, which probably was definitely there if you're in pain, but there could have also been very positive parts. And sometimes when we look at that and we can say, well, my brother always teased me, but he always defended me when anyone else started up with me. So I still am carrying pain from how he teased me, because some people do carry the pain of how they were teased as children by their siblings. But I also want to look at the whole picture and recognize that he really tried to be a big brother, and he really stood up for me if anyone else started up with me. And it's like sometimes we forget that our vision gets very skewed. And when we look at the whole picture, it's easier for us to forgive. It's easier for us to accept. It's easier for us to move on. So Becca just did it naturally. She said, yeah, my father on one hand was too sharp, but on the other hand, he actually opened up some avenues in my brain of religious seeking. So just now, again, that religious seeking had nothing to do with how we treated her, but it's just looking at another aspect of him as a person and saying, oh, so I could put that in the same pot as I put all the other things I always think about, and realize, he wasn't a horrible person. He just, again, didn't have the tools I needed. So anyone else besides Becca have done either of these two things now that we're saying, either this idea of just accepting yourself and accepting and saying, okay, this is what God wanted me to go through, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to make a healthy choice. And finding that really healed. Or what Becca's speaking about, and giving a great example of, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness of the person that hurt me, of hurt us, hurt someone. And as when you forgive, finding that now the pain just lessens, subsides, or completely goes away.
Sarah, I'll share. So I've had multiple surgeries in the past few months, like on both. I had to have surgery on both my shoulders, and then just recently my knee. And my doctor, I just went to an appointment for him to like do the recap of what he found when he did this surgery on my knee. And I mean, it wasn't the best thing. It was, I have a lot of arthritis, and, in the medical world, I mean, I'll be looking at knee replacement, maybe both of them along, years from now. And it's all depending upon like how I move forward. And that was really hard to hear. And, and it's just, I think because I get rid of a lot of my stress with running and being physically active and things. And so I love to hike and kayak and do all these things. And there's a lot of those things that I cannot do anymore. And so I really had to get to a point where, it's like, well, what am I supposed to do now? And how does this look? And what will this look like? And I have a 8-year-old, and, I can't run anymore. I can't, do some of these things that I've always done. And, I just really did have to get to acceptance with it, and that, this too is good. And there'll be other ways that I can do this. And although, it doesn't look great, Hashem is ultimately in charge. And, and if there's something I'm supposed to learn through this, and, then the problem can go away. I mean, it may not bother me as much as it's expected.
Absolutely. That's exactly the example. The acceptance is, this is God. And this wasn't my script, but God doesn't generally listen to our scripts. And he knows what he's doing. And yeah, maybe I'm supposed to develop different aspects of myself that I have not developed, because this has been my stress release go-to. But if I can't release my stress this way, I guess I'm going to uncover other aspects of self and other tools and skills and talents and pursuits to release my stress. And if I can't bond with my 8-year-old over running together and kiting or something, well, I'm going to find another way to relate to him, that maybe that's what God wants. Maybe that's what he's going to need more than having a mom who can go hiking with him. He's going to need a mom I'm going to find different roads to be there for him, so it's definitely, like when something gets closed, something else opens up. And I've always seen that. And that's with many people, one thing closes, and you're right, it might not really be so permanently closed, because they could be wrong also. And maybe the work is your acceptance, and then the doctor will be, oh, wow, with your rate of recovery, feel free, go running. And maybe not. And that's also part of God's plan. And God's only doing it for good for me, for good for my son, for good for my husband, for good for all of us. Maybe I need to find a different way to relate, and not relate in that physical modality. I need another way of relating. to myself, to the world, to people. So yeah, it's a lot of, and that acceptance releases the pain. And you're allowed to feel pain. You should allow yourself to feel the sadness, the pain, giving up all these things that are meaningful to you, and then accept that this is exactly what God wants for now, for today. Maybe it'll be different tomorrow, but for today, this is what God wants. And I can still make good choices. I can still make healthy, positive, happy choices.
Yeah, amen.
Anyone else has done either of these? Actually, 3 things I've suggested now, which is either the going to someone who's hurt you to give them the opportunity to sincerely apologize, or like Christelle was saying, accepting it and allowing yourself to feel the pain and accepting it and making good choices and moving on. Or as Becca was saying, forgiving, being aware that the person was using the tools they had. They didn't have very good tools, and forgiving, as Becca also said, by looking at the person in totality and seeing good there also, which tempers our perspective and our judgment and helps us more easily forgive.
I do all 3 every time I mess up,
Okay.
because otherwise I have no peace. If I do not do it, I have no peace.
Good. They're all good. They all work. They're all very God oriented. They're all very Noahide oriented, and they're all how God wants us to be. God wants us to be those types of people. He wants us to have no peace if we hurt someone until we really, and I'm saying after when I spoke with this student, and it took a long time, and I was really, it was like very draining because I was so focused on being so empathetically there with her in her pain. But I was so grateful. I was so grateful that she came to me. I was so grateful that we could release this. I felt so horrible thinking of someone walking around with this burden of pain. And any case, and even more, and I was part of it. I was a reason for it. Even if I wasn't the reason for it, I'd feel horrible. Let alone I'm the reason for it. Then you really feel horrible. So yes, God definitely wants us to be the type of people that will do anything we can to remove another person's pain. And definitely these techniques we're saying are also really helpful for us to live our own lives in a very healthy way, in the best way, in the most healthy way possible. In terms of turning to God, another aspect of turning to God, in terms of this idea of releasing pain, is asking God for his help. Asking God for help that you should always feel he's with you. Asking God for help that you should always feel strong and safe and not being hurt. And really, as we turn to God and as we ask God to help us through our feelings, through our realities, and through our perspectives, the more we feel God's support, the more we feel that we're not alone, and we're not weak, and we're not vulnerable, and we're not helpless, we're not hopeless. We're so empowered because God's with me. I'm never walking this road alone. I'm always walking it, being carried, being supported, leaning on God for absolute help every step of the way. That also helps dissipate pain. Because again, a lot of times if a person has a pain, and whatever the situation was, they felt sort of weak or not safe or vulnerable, and the more we can really just internalize, none of those things are true. Because I'm not alone, I'm with God. Maybe it was true at a different point in my life. Maybe that's how I perceived my life. Maybe I was very alone. Maybe I was very vulnerable, even though, of course, God was, of course, still there in my life, but it was a much more peripheral way. But maybe at this point in my life, when I really feel God's presence very strongly in my life, I have such a strong sense that I'm never alone, that he's with me and he's taking care of me. And he's taking care of me, and he's taking care of me. And then all of those negative messages that I fed myself are just so patently not true. I'm not weak, I'm strong. I'm not vulnerable, I'm safe. I can't be hurt now. I have such protection. And the more you really get into that image of God with his constant care and love and protection, the more the pain from those other situations just lessens and leaves you. Has anyone tried this and seen that it helped them? Just literally turning to God and say, help me that I should feel you. Help me that I should know you are with me and therefore I am strong. You are with me and therefore I am safe. You are with me and therefore I am secure and I can never be hurt. If you haven't tried it, it's a great thing to try because it really is sort of trying to take those root issues, those root feelings that you have from whatever pains you've absorbed, and it's just responding to them, like at their core, saying maybe this was true, but it's not true now because I'm not alone, because I'm with God, because he's protecting me, because he's taking care of me, because he's holding me. So nobody can hurt me now. I'm very, very, very strong because I have God's strength flowing through me. So as you more and more feel that, so again, it's pulling on your relationship with God, but in a different way than we were talking before. So we're talking about, because of your relationship with God, accepting whatever you went through. Understanding is part of what was supposed to happen to you. Yes, there's this person, and this person, you know, did many wrong things to me or to many other people, but that doesn't take away God. That doesn't take away his vision, what he wants for me to have gone through and for me to become the person I became because of that. That was what we were talking about before. Now we're saying turning to God to help you now. That you should really feel his presence, that you should really feel he's with you, that you should really feel you're strong and you're safe and you're secure. That you have a very strong life, a very safe life, a very blessed life. And when you're really feeling all that, the pain leaves you. Because that was a different person, a different lifetime. That's not me, that's not now, that's not this lifetime. And sometimes it's sort of like a similar but slightly different idea is literally trying to like remember the experience, or experience gave you pain. And as you're reliving it, giving yourself the message that I'm safe now. I'm no longer, whatever, taking Becca's example, I'm no longer 10 and being hurt. I'm 35 or 45 or 55 or 65 and no one's hurting me. And I'm completely safe. And just like that also can just like help release the whole experience, which is of course what we're looking for, because as we carry the pain with us, it burdens us, it limits us, it weakens us, it drains us. So it's really, 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 really important to do the work to just free ourselves of all of this unnecessary baggage. So we can use our energy for what we're supposed to be using it for, to live full, productive, healthy, happy lives and serve God, instead of just using it contending with all this inner pain that we never resolved. Becca?
Well, I have to say, I mean, throughout my life, I've had on and off, I mean, some pretty really iffy moments in my life. I mean, and I never really felt like I was without, that God wasn't there. I have never felt that. I mean, and I put myself in positions, you know, maybe, and maybe I didn't realize that I was at the time fully that I was putting myself in that kind of a position. But, you know, where I could have really had some serious harm. And I have never not felt that God was not there. I always felt that, especially then. I mean, I've gone around day to day, tra la la, you know, and not really thought about it. But especially in those moments, that's when I really felt his presence. And while I had some level of hurt or fear or whatever, I never completely, I always felt like there was a presence there. So I don't know. I can't.
That's a great gift. That's a great gift. It's a great gift to always, no matter what you're going through, or sometimes specifically because of what you're going through. And I totally understand what Becca is saying. When we put ourselves in the most dangerous situations, that's when we're most conscious that, well, I'm really fine because God's with me. I'm just dumping this all on him and assuming he's going to get us both out of this situation. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful that you always, always, always felt that. You always should feel that. You should not be in dangerous situations, but you should always feel in the very normative situations and little details of life. Always see God's very, very warm, compassionate, healing hand. So we're going to stop now. I have a few more ideas I wanted to share, but we'll stop at this point, and hopefully if everything was things that you've heard and you've thought of and you've worked through, that's great. Just recommit. And if it was something new, maybe you could take some idea and really try to apply it and see what happens. Because all of us, the more we bring God in and the more we release and the more we accept, the more we can take away these burdens and use our energy for what they're meant to be used for, instead of for, always playing defense in keeping those closet doors very firmly shut. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful day.
This was a beautiful class. Thank you.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.